Saltburn is the second feature film from award-winning director, writer, and producer Emerald Fennell, and it does not disappoint. Strap yourselves in because this film is one hell of a ride. So I want to try and make the first part of this video as spoiler-free as possible, but it is kind of hard not to take something away from the film just by hearing other people talk about it. So if you care about having as fresh of an experience of Saltburn as possible, then in a kind of counterintuitive move, I implore you to go and watch the film in the cinemas first and then come back and watch this video. But if you're one of those people that like to know as much about a film as possible before going to see it, then I will provide a mostly spoiler-free rundown for you now. Saltburn follows university student Oliver Quick, who after starting at Oxford College finds himself isolated from the rest of his classmates who all seem to know each other already. He swiftly becomes infatuated with his aristocratic schoolmate Felix, and after a chance encounter that sparks their friendship, receives an invitation back to Felix's wealthy family home Saltburn for the summer. What I noticed immediately about Saltburn when compared to Fennell's debut feature, Promising Young Woman, was the camera work. There are some very deliberate choices throughout, the first being to shoot the entire thing in a very strange aspect ratio. 1.33 by 1. So I actually saw the film at South by Southwest Sydney, and before the screening, in the introduction, there was a statement read out from the director Emerald Fennell, and in it, she explained the choice to shoot in this aspect ratio as wanting to make the audience feel as though they were peering in on the characters as if through a window or looking into a dollhouse. This allegory wasn't initially clear to me, but it became a much more compelling and understandable artistic choice as the film went on. The retro-esque aspect ratio was at first a little jarring, the decision also connecting the film to its mid-2000s setting. However, you quickly become acclimatized to your cropped viewing window. And cinematographer Linus Sandgren really utilizes that smaller frame to make the audience feel uncomfortable, squishing us in with the characters at their most dominant and vulnerable moments. The sometimes claustrophobic nature of this odd aspect ratio really helps to build the tension beautifully. As an audience member, you think you're looking in on these characters as Fennell describes, but later on you start to realize that you may actually be locked in here with them. The setting of Saltburn also contributes to this sense of feeling trapped, shot purposefully on an estate that had never previously been shown on film before, and according to their contract, never will again. The editing is also masterful. Being a thriller, editing is kind of key to the success of the film, and Saltburn definitely triumphs in this regard. The jump cut reveal was used particularly effectively to really punch into those important story beats and elicit an audible reaction from the audience. On top of this, the performances by literally everyone in the cast sold the wildness of this story. The often tone-deaf eccentricities of Felix's wealthy family were portrayed to perfection by Rosamund Pike, Richard E. Grant, and Alison Oliver. And the two leads, Barry Keoghan and Jacob Elordi, were just overflowing with chemistry. Keoghan in particular was just dripping with disgustingly disturbing energy in the best possible way. There is a line that I feel could be crossed for some people by the contents in this film, but in retrospect, there was nothing that didn't feel correct for who these characters were, and I think the performances play a big part in making these unhinged characters' egocentricities feel believable. That being said, when the film does strip away its initial decorum, these moments won't be for everyone. I said in my first thoughts over on TikTok that if I had to describe Saltburn in one word, it would be visceral, and I still stand by that. The production design, the cinematography, the audible reactions from the audience in the cinema, the story itself, the overall vibe, everything in this film is posed to make you feel a certain type of way, and whilst I wasn't initially sure if it was a way I wanted to feel, the sheer amount of adrenaline coursing through me as the credits rolled was a clear indication to me that in fact, I did. Okay, now it is time to get into spoiler territory, so you have been warned. I would liken the experience of watching Saltburn to the experience of watching a true crime documentary. You're initially sucked in by morbid curiosity, and the further you go, the more that uncomfortable pit in your stomach starts to form, yet The amount of adrenaline pumping through your blood forces you to keep watching despite how disgusted you are. And that is what makes Saltburn so successful. I struggle with films that add in things that are gross or purposefully uncomfortable just for the sake of eliciting a reaction, and it's kind of the reason why I dislike most horror movies. Some of the things in Saltburn really shocked me, and the rest of the audience, judging by the audibility of their reactions. Even though Saltburn is classified as a thriller, the first hour or so doesn't really betray the darkness at the core of this story. So what is it about this story that makes it so deliciously depraved? Oliver Quick arrives at Oxford College isolated and alone. Coming in on a scholarship, he's instantly an outsider and struggles to make any friends. In a voyeuristic fashion, he eyes a group of popular students, in particular Felix Catton, the attractive, charismatic leader of the pack who everybody is in love with, it seems. One day, while riding his bike to class, Oliver passes Felix leaning against a tree, stranded by his own bike's flat tire. In an attempt to gain his favour, Oliver gives his bike to Felix, and what do you know? It works.
Oliver, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Seriously. Okay. Thank you so much, mate.
What follows is a beautifully edited montage of scenes as Felix and Oliver get to know each other, partying, studying, and generally growing closer together. Oliver reveals his mother's struggle with addiction and her inability to keep their home in a livable state, as well as his father's passing away a little later on in the film. Oliver is not coping well with the thought of going home for the summer, so Felix, being a good friend, invites him back to his family's wealthy estate of Saltburn. And this is where things really start to heat up. The script up to this point has been fairly tame, with some pretty quick-witted dialogue and kind of a heartwarming relationship building between Felix and Oliver. The only indications that Oliver is anything other than the shy, socially awkward nerd he's presented to be are his voyeuristic tendencies of watching Felix from outside his dormitory window during private moments, shall we say? At this point, there just seems to be an unrequited romance blossoming between the two of them. This theory is confirmed by the presence of Oliver's biggest antagonist, Farley Start, who is introduced early in the piece and remains an obstructive force between Oliver and Felix's relationship throughout the entire school term. When he appears at Saltburn, it's revealed that Farley is actually Felix's cousin, another layer of familiarity that Oliver must get through in order to be closer to Felix. Amongst those at Saltburn are Duncan, the sullen and oppressive butler, Venetia, Felix's flirty and sexually liberated sister, Elsbeth and Sir James Catton, Felix's parents, and poor dear Pamela, Elizabeth's friend who is staying with them while she gets back on her feet. British high society is the perfect setting for a film like this because all of the characters are so awful, yet tucked so neatly behind polite conversation and words spoken behind closed doors. As I mentioned before, all of the performances are just so spot on, and the script really shines in the family scenes once we arrive at Saltburn. We now witness our next montage of an idyllic summer spent lounging by the lake on the family's estate, naked sunbathing in the grass, dinners, parties, tennis matches in formal wear, and devouring the 7th installment of the Harry Potter book series. The section of the film at Saltburn is very #Graham-worthy, but Fennell's decision to set the film in a time before the social ability of the internet is to the film's benefit. It's like the characters are caged in a albeit very glamorous prison with no escape, not even virtual. This sense of being trapped somewhere is also one of the ways that the film builds tension. Even though we know the characters can leave at any time, the house is just so large and is kind of like a labyrinth, so characters choose to spend their time all on top of each other and in each other's business. During his time here, Oliver goes from someone who clearly doesn't belong, having to borrow a suit from Felix to dress for formal dinners, constantly getting lost in the house, to someone who is overly comfortable in a house that isn't his. An attitude keenly picked up by the family's butler Duncan. In this phase of his time here at Saltburn, Oliver's dark side starts to emerge. He starts to verbally, psychologically, and physically manipulate the people around him, kicking things off with one of the most disturbing and cringeworthy intimate adult fun time scenes I think I've ever seen. This was, I think, when myself and the audience collectively realized that the film wasn't what we thought it was. And it's this act in particular that kicks off Oliver's downward spiral of deception, power play, and continuing infatuation with Felix as he obsessively watches him through the crack in the door of their shared bathroom. After Farley confronts Oliver about his relationship with Felix, an email is discovered from Farley detailing his plans to sell some of the family's priceless artifacts, subsequently resulting in Farley being banished from the house. But Oliver's birthday is coming up, so the family wants to throw him a big masquerade birthday party at the house. And on the day of the gathering, Felix decides to surprise Oliver by taking him to his mother's place in order to help fix their relationship. Once realizing this is where Felix is taking him, Oliver tries anything to get Felix to turn around, and once we arrive in his neighborhood, we see that his mother actually lives in a pretty beautiful home. Trying to convince Felix to stay in the car unsuccessfully, they knock on the door to reveal Oliver's mother, happy and not drug affected in the slightest, inviting them in for lunch with Oliver's very alive father. I love the moments leading up to this because me and the lady sitting next to me, I think both audibly said, "Oh my god, he's been lying the whole time," or like something along the lines. We were both just like on the same wavelength leading up to this reveal. Caught in his lie, Oliver is sullen and rude while Felix is just so polite, and it's painful to watch them act in complete opposition with one another as their close friendship disintegrates in front of our very eyes. Heading back to Saltburn, Oliver has lost all control of a situation he thought he was master of. Felix ignores him all night, and finally they confront each other in the property's hedge maze. Because of course the property has a hedge maze. Arguing once again, Oliver leaves despondent, the party now leaving an extra bitter taste in his mouth. The trashed property the morning after may be one of my favourite set pieces from the film, and it certainly is an appropriate backdrop for what comes next. The hungover partygoers arise to discover that Felix is missing. A property-wide search begins when a harrowing scream cuts through the air. Lying face down in the centre of the hedge maze is Felix's lifeless body. Following the scream, we cut to this Dutch low angle with Felix's body in the foreground and the family members coming into shot one by one in the background, reacting with such palpable emotion that it cuts deep into your core, even if you kind of had an inkling about what we were about to discover. A darkly comical succession of deaths happens now, and this is where the editing really comes in clutch. For whilst this story has been unfolding, and Oliver from the future has been narrating poetically in and out throughout the film. After a traumatizing family breakfast scene, bathed satanically in the red light of the sun through the curtains, Venetia and Oliver have a confrontation in the bathroom. On the word of Oliver's narration, we cut back to Venetia lying dead in the bath, taking her own life after struggling with the death of her brother, and the chain of unfortunate events just continues to snowball here. Farley is kicked out of Saltburn for taking drugs at Oliver's party, and with both children now dead, Sir James Catton asks Oliver to leave, which he only does after being signed a cheque. And we time skip to the future to Oliver living a very comfortable life. He types away on a laptop in a posh cafe when Elspeth Catton walks in and notices him. The news of her husband, Sir James Catton's death, sprawled across the headline of a newspaper sitting beside him. In her grief, she invites Oliver back to Saltburn to stay, and here is where past and future narrating Olivers collide. In another expertly edited montage, the true extent of Oliver's manipulation throughout the film is revealed. Not a stitch was coincidence or accident. Oliver has been controlling events from the very start. The flat bicycle tire, Farley's email to sell the priceless heirlooms, Felix and Venetia's death, all the way now to where he's slowly been poisoning Elsbeth, revealed in a jump cut that pulls back to see her body lying in a hospital bed in her lavish bedroom. These last 10 minutes or so of the film is where you really start to get that adrenaline rush as an audience member. The quick succession of deaths and reveals, the time skip, the villain coming out on top, all of it cascade into this momentous conclusion that leaves you feeling icky yet so satisfied as we watch Oliver dance triumphantly naked through the expansive halls of Saltburn. The place from which Fennell pulls her stories is clearly twisted, but If writing stories about people who have no problem acting on their intrusive thoughts is her MO, then I'm here for it. I never saw her short film Careful How You Go, but having a little look on her IMDb, I discovered that she was actually a writer on Killing Eve, and that just makes so much sense to me after seeing this film. In an interview with Vanity Fair about the film, she explained that she wanted to write a story that sympathized with unlikable people. The sorts of people that we can't stand. The sorts of people who are abhorrent. If we can love them, if we can fall in love with these people, if we can understand why this is so alluring, in spite of its palpable cruelty and unfairness and sort of strangeness, if we all want to be there too. I think that's just such an interesting dynamic. It definitely is, and I think she succeeds here. The thing about unlikable people is that they are, unlikable, but the thing with Oliver is that she made him so balanced. We swing back and forth with being completely in love with him to being completely disgusted by him. Oliver Quick is unhinged, hilarious, charming, rude, charismatic. He's a juxtaposition that you only come to know the further we dive into his story, when the darker sides come out only after you've committed to liking him and now you're sympathizing with a psychopath. Just like Fennell wanted you to. I wouldn't classify Saltburn as a teen movie, but I think we're starting to see a trend of stories that explore the darker side of who we are when we're growing up, and I think Saltburn definitely fits into that area for me. I think it started with shows like Riverdale, 13 Reasons Why, and Euphoria, and even though I haven't seen any of those shows, I think this trend of exploring the darker, unspoken thoughts of teens and young adults is making its way to the forefront of storytelling and heralding the introduction of a new era of filmmakers. For example, films like Do Revenge, Talk to Me, Bottoms, even Barbie to a degree.
Do you guys ever think about dying?
All slot into this darker young people films category. What this is reflecting in terms of our society is, I think, that maybe the pandemic forced us to go a little bit retrospective. The economic downturn probably plays a part, and the fact that this new generation is really fed up with a lot of social justice issues like sexism, discrimination, transphobia, genocide, etc. I hope that the fact that these movies are being made means that we will start to see more gender diverse directors and crews behind the camera formulating these stories. Because the stories themselves indicate a yearning for a new kind of filmmaking that is way more inclusive. I was a little bit surprised by how much I loved Saltburn, but considering Promising Young Woman was my favourite film of 2020, I don't know why I was surprised. The tale that Emerald Fennell has woven here is a deliciously morbid and sensual roller coaster that I can't wait to own so I can go on it again and again. And those are my thoughts on Saltburn. I do hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have seen the movie now, please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I could talk about this film all damn day. It was just such an experience and I can't wait to talk about it with other people. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and let me know that you liked it. If you're enjoying the film related content, we have way more on the channel, so consider subscribing. I try and upload at least one video a month at the moment. But yeah, until next time, bye bye. Just check that we are recording. I'm worried now after my previous video with the film set horror stories, and someone's horror story was that they shot a whole thing and then the button didn't say record, so now I'm paranoid. Saltburn follows university student Oliver Quick, who after you do kind of become acclimatized to it, and yeah. That's it, that's the point. And cinematographer Linus Sandgren really used it like... Am I recording? Yes. Paranoia. The often tone-deaf eccentricities. That's a hard word to say. There seems to be nothing but an unrequited blowmance.